welcome to our moderator of today's panel. This is Elaine Raybourn.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Thanks very much. I'm really excited to moderate this panel. So I started out in art, and then I went by way of science, and now I'm back doing video games and art. So for me, this is a really great place to be and a great place to showcase art. So I would really like to introduce you to our panelists. So let's see, over here to my left, we're going to start with Cecilio, and Cecilio, sorry, Cecilio, and then OHNO. Following Robo is Warren Almodovar, and then we have Barrett Biggers, and then finally Humphrey Ching. And I've just started to get to know these guys. They sound pretty exciting. And so we're going to start right out with just a little bit of an introduction. If you guys could just talk a little bit about yourselves, just by way of introducing yourselves to the group here. We'll start with you, Mari.
Hey everyone. So I am Mari, and I have started a hand-painted shoe brand called Walking on Acrylic. I enjoy customizing everything that I can get my hands on and being covered in paint.
Don't be shy.
So do Woody. Hello everyone, my name is Ken. I go by artist name ROBO. I dabble in any kind of medium I can get my hands on, and basically try and stay out of trouble with it. So it's worked so far. I don't know how much longer it's going to last, but I'm going to try. So
Here we go.
Musa, where do I begin?
I know, right? My name is Warren Almodovar. I'm the sticker dork. I do digital art, basically doing vectored in Adobe Illustrator. So I do vinyl decals, clothing, frames, and yeah. Store windows, bunch of stores, walls, all kinds of stuff. I don't know, man.
Vinyl wrap.
I'm just holding it down, you know, but it's all good. Next.
Cool.
Hello, Barrett Biggers, and I am a digital artist. That's what I call myself. And I also do a lot of different styles and different media, but I kind of run in the digital world. I primarily work there. I started in traditional and kind of moved to digital, and I call myself a little bit of the illegitimate artist because I don't really have a formal background in anything art related. I just kind of learned myself and just running full speed ever since. So.
And it's me, Mario. No. I'm Humphrey Ching. I go by the artist Hump, the lounge designs, and I'm a full-time graphic designer, digital artist. I dabble in doing movie posters. I self-published a comic book a while back, and yeah, I've been doing digital art and graphic design for like over 20 years. I'm originally from New York, and then moved down to Florida. I met these crazy people, and we're like the best of friends. That's what you're doing.
All right, cool. So we've got some interest in the audience. People would really like to hear you guys talk a little bit about your careers, how you got started. We also want to know what your inspirations are. Maybe you're inspired by nature, maybe not. Let us know what that is. And then also speak a little more specifically about your media, how you utilize them. Maybe you combine them in really unique ways. So if you could, let's first start out with the different media that you use, and then really please do show us the stuff that you've got on the table and behind us.
Hey, so I've been using acrylic paint, and I'm very crafty, so I like to use anything that I can get my hands on, so I like to try new things as well. I have put bows on shoes, like I did Doctor Who shoes, and I had like the different bows for the courting doctors on the shoes. So I always like to look for creative things to add to it, like metallic paint and so forth. I want to try leather paint next because I would like to do boots in the future. And so here are some shoes that I brought today. Since we were going to be so close to the dino room, I decided to bring some dinosaur themed shoes. And I'm mostly inspired by pop culture, anything that brings me nostalgia, anything from childhood. And this is a nature-inspired one since we were going to be so close to the dinosaurs. But anything that I can see, really, I like to practice and just challenge myself.
I forgot the question.
I really do.
Yeah.
What media do you use?
Well, primarily, I work in acrylic paints. I do illustrations in pencil, and just recently I started using professional ink, which it's kind of like watercolor, but the vibrancy of the color is way more intense, so you can get better effects and things like that. And this is one of my pieces back here, and generally I'm super obnoxious with the color that I use. Like my palettes are generally like way overboard, and the ink just kind of like plays into that. So, but on the side of the acrylic stuff, this stuff has led me to working with companies like Universal and Disney and things like that, where I've gotten to do scenic art for like Halloween Horror Nights, and I just worked on some Star Wars stuff recently. So that translates really well from the canvas to real life applications and 3D situations and things like that. But I also do primarily I'm a freelance graphic designer, so I work digitally with that kind of stuff. But I would love to just make a living off of my acrylic, and eventually I might get there. But it's good to have a balance. So because you kind of cover the spectrum and keep going until nobody wants it anymore.
All right. My primary medium is digital. Most of the stuff I work with is vinyl. A lot of people don't view it as an art form because it's all generic sticker designs, stuff that you put on your cars. You can get it in China and all this. So I'm that one person that wants to break that mold of doing my own designs, collaborating with artists. Primarily do most of my work in Illustrator. It's a funny story how it all started. I wasn't really a big artist until probably about 3 years ago. I used to work for the government, got retired, and I had to find something to do. And the best way was to express myself through art. Then I met these guys. They've taught me so much. I'm also self-taught, like tube-taught.
Tube-taught, yeah.
Trademarked by Ken. But I was taught by YouTube. So if you think that you can't really get into it, trust me, you can. It's just you really got to be determined. You got to get out there. You got to really push forward and learn your stuff. Learn the limitations of your hardware. And just whatever you focus on, just go for it. And then, until recently I was doing stickers. When I first started out, I was doing, the generic designs to everybody else. Then I wanted to be different. So I've always been that way. And then I started doing frames, started doing clothing, trying to bring back the holographics and the foils and the metallics. And yeah, that's about it, right? Too much?
No, it's good.
But if you're really aspiring to do it, I'm the perfect example of you don't have to be mega talented to do it. You can just pick it up and go with it. It's having that determination. That's the one thing that you really have to focus, and you have to want the desire to learn your craft. Next.
Right on. Exactly what he said.
Yeah.
I didn't want to put it on the table. So, pretty similar story. I have a biology degree, so when I went out of college, I did wildlife surveys and did biology kind of work, which is really cool, but, sorry.
There you go. Yeah.
There we go. Use that ring. And over the years, the biology didn't work out so much, and I decided that my true passion was creating, and I wanted to be an artist somehow, and I realized commercial art was probably the way to go. Graphic design, doing websites, doing logos, doing branding, things like that. Got into that, very lucky to get a job in marketing, and I learned a lot in 5 years, basically thrown into the fire, into an ad agency kind of place, and learned everything. Learned how to look at the best, to raise my own bar and the people next to me to try to be, you know, as good and learn more from them. And also, not having an art degree, I always let that hold me back. But over the years, I realized, just like I'm hearing already, you know, it doesn't matter. You just have to have passion, and you have to know or use the tools that are available and use them to the best of your abilities. And I also like to focus on nature because of my biology degree, and just my love of animals and nature. Just personally, that's more of my original content. My original art is focused on nature. I also do fan art too. I do the pop culture art. I do movie posters, do anime, do video games. And they're the fan favorites. I love them too. So it's a good way to express my interests and get other people excited about the same things I like. And it's very fulfilling to do both. And I want to continue to do more of the originals and maybe do a little less fan art over time. And that way I get my kind of IP, my look, my style a little more established.
What do you mean by IP?
Intellectual property. So basically the characters, the designs are based on just my own creation, my own imagination, and not referencing anything specifically that's already out there. So anyway, Humphrey. Oh yeah, Mario.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So, I'm Humphrey again. It's been a long 2 days. I'm like out of it, but yeah. So I started out as I went to school in New York. So I grew up in New York, and then I went to college in New York in the art school. I went to Fashion Institute of Technology. I'm probably the only one that went to art school out of all of us, right?
Oh, I'm the fact.
Oh, you did? Okay. But yeah, yeah, I'm the jerk of the group, you know. But I studied illustration for 4 years, and then I graduated for BFA, and then I went into the fashion industry. And I was in there for like 2 years, doing a lot of apparel for license, like Disney, Warner Brothers, Nickelodeon, etc. And then I also did a lot of work for the fashion industry. I worked for one of the biggest accessory companies. And then I got kind of sick of it, so I wanted to get away from New York because I got sick of New York. Then I came down to Orlando, and I needed something more of a slower pace. So I came down here and then I went to learn to do digital animation. Then I realized that I didn't really like it, and then I stuck with graphic design. So I'm still doing graphic design to this day. I work on my art on the side. I have my own original IPs that I publish, self-publish, my own comic book and stuff. And then I do alternative movie posters. What? Would you like to say something, Ken?
Said he agreed.
But yeah, I started off with doing a lot of traditional mediums, and then I got into digital, and then I fell in love with the whole. It's funny because I'm like the guy who started off doing illustration, where we had to learn all the traditional medias, and then but I didn't go in for graphic design. So, but then like they gave us like a class to learn how to work with digital mediums like Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff, and I ended up loving it. So then I just pursued doing graphic design and illustration. Like there weren't that many illustration jobs out there, so there were mostly a lot of digital jobs. So it's like doing graphic design is probably like one of the best way to like get your foot in the door if you want to get into like an art world out there, because there's a big world of digital mediums and stuff like that. But I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. It's been a long.
I concur.
But yeah, I think you guys can talk more.
I think you're done.
Oh, we're done?
So I want to make a comment. I see some themes emerging. Okay, so one thing I found really interesting about all of what you guys said is that, first of all, you utilize technology to not only keep abreast with new techniques, but to learn, or you might even use it to do your art. I also really like the fact that some of you have come out of a more traditional background, and there's been some change. And also, you guys really talked about newness, right? So really things coming together in like the past 5 years or so. And what I find really interesting about a lot of different domains and careers is that they're changing. And art has changed too, right? And is changing, just like scientific careers, everything. And what I find that's interesting too about your work, and maybe it's the reason why you're here at Otronicon, is that I see some representations of science in your work. And while we're kind of on the topic of inspiration, could we talk a little bit about maybe some of the commonalities between science and art and what inspires you guys, maybe coming out of the scientific world? And maybe if you want to kind of relate that to, why are you even here at Otronicon? Why are you drawn to this event?
Well, I've been coming to Otronicon for the past 5 years, and I actually work for an engineering and computer simulations company that has a booth upstairs. So that's how I found out about Otronicon, and I fell in love with it, and just the combination of art and science and being able to see what everyone comes up with every year. At my job, at the company that I work for, I get to see what the artists do, and they do focus a lot on 3D art, which is not something that I dabble in. I'm in the graphic design department. I forgot to mention earlier that I graduated and got my degree on graphic design last fall. But they do gaming simulations for training purposes, and it's just beautiful, and like it's just wonderful to see how people can create worlds, and you derive a lot from what we see in the everyday, and then submerge you into more than what you thought possible. So I do like how we're able to create. I feel like the biggest combination that I find between science and art is the ability to create. What was the rest?
Cool.
That's good?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. You
I'm like, was there more to that question? I don't remember.
I like the way you worked in your background and career, because you didn't talk about that.
I
last
forgot.
time.
I was like, I have
So
shoes.
That's
I
all right.
peeked.
We'll get to that. Good.
Keeping it rolling. Can I go now? As far as the science thing, I was raised in a very scientific household, at least not by scientists, but with an appreciation for science. It was always about ocean life, and in the Northeast there's a store known as Edmund Scientific, and it's basically the store that anything you can think of science-based. They sell telescopes, magnets, solar arrays, all kinds of stuff. And that was, when I was a kid, that was equivalent to a field trip to me when we would get to go to that store. And I loved it so much, and I didn't pursue science as much as I would have liked to. But then later on, once I got into doing visual arts and things like that, I fell back in love with technology, and I fell back in love with science. And I think it was when I realized that there was a bridge between science and art that it rekindled my love for both. And I do I go by the name ROBO OHNO. I love robots. I love technology. I'm a big fan of the potential upcoming singularity. I don't know if there's any Kurzweil fans in here at all or anything like that, but the idea of just technology and humanity in unison working together, and that whole idea it's an incredible concept, and you can see it happening on a daily basis. People are they're connected to their phones, all day, every day, and the fact that I can do something that it's instinctive. Art has been a part of humanity since the cave drawings, and I feel like there's a bridge in there that I've been able to tap into, to where I can explore science and I can explore art, and that's kind of what brought me to Otronicon. Was I've known these guys for years, and I just found out about Otronicon last year, and they've been doing it for years. So it's a very well kept secret, by these guys, and I think it's, I found out, and now it jigs up, because now I'm a part of it. But basically, it's fantastic to be able to be on, to do what I do for a living, and then still, have something in common with all these creatives that are out here, making robots and archaeologists and all that. It's all art. It's all art. It's all bringing these things into the world, whether it's information or creations and things like that. It's all tapping into that human creativity that we're all capable of, but maybe don't have the outlet. So like, I'm in a position where I'm very grateful and I'm very lucky to be on both sides of the fence. And it's just, I found my happy spot with this. So I mean, Otronicon is like, I want it to flourish, which it has been, regardless of how I feel about it. And I'm really looking to being more involved in these kind of things. And the NASA guys are here, which I'm super psyched about, because I have annual passes to Kennedy Space Center, and I really would like to take some sort of a path into doing this for this kind of outlet. So I mean, if it happens, it'll happen. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep my eyes open and keep busting my chops until something happens.
Until the Dark Empire comes in.
That's right. So Dork Empire takes it. No. I don't know if you guys mind. I talk very loudly, so I'm not gonna use the mic. So if you don't hear me well, just let me know. Cause it's easier for me to talk this way than to talk into the mic.
I hear you.
But the way I see it, science and art go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And the way that I explain it is, a lot of inspiration for art comes from science. You got your biology, you got space, you got a bunch of stuff where a lot of fandoms and a lot of different art pieces come from that. So, like, let's say dragons, perfect example. You get the inspiration from lizards, from nature, from animals that are already out there. And as an artist, when you're looking to make a new piece, you look for inspiration in your surroundings. So like, me personally, when I do my stuff, because I'm gonna say it like the way I would say it. I'm a really sucky artist for what it is. I'm just gonna be real. And honestly, like, I just Frankenstein a lot of my stuff. So that's why I'm telling you, like, you can do it as an artist. If you really, like, you see people like the guys around me and the gals that are really talented, and we got other artists around here that are super talented, but just because you see that, take it as an inspiration. So like, me personally, if I'm doing a dragon piece, I'll look for a bunch of different, I'll look for bearded dragon, I'll look for stuff that's already been from the past that other artists have done. I'll look for different types of lizards depending on the dragon that I like, whether it's a wyvern, whether it's, getting really crazy into it. But with science, you can find inspiration for any kind of art. So I think it goes hand in hand. As in terms of why I like Otronicon, it's just because I like hanging out with my friends. And it's fun. And I love the people that come here. Like, I love you guys coming out. It's super fun. I love to talk to everybody. And if you've been through my booth, you know that I love to talk. So
And
it's a very super fun event.
Yeah.
It's the first event of the year, at least for me. So it's like to start the year with a bang, especially like business-wise and anything like that. It's an awesome thing to do, and I love that they invite us out to it. And it's like I said, it's very fun. And if people like to learn and grab some inspiration, if I can inspire somebody with my tale of how I became an artist per se, well, yeah. And I think it's a pretty cool thing to do. And I love the Science Center because I like coming here.
Right on.
About it.
All right. Yeah, everything that these guys and gals are saying is absolutely the same here. I mean, it's there's two gals.
Yes. Hey, you break, you buy.
Well, that's how it works. For me personally, again, especially with my pieces like this one, for instance, I have a lot of references to nature and animals and plants, and having the biology degree and all that is, I say that, but honestly, it's been with me before I went to school or anything. It's just a love of nature. It's a love of how ecosystems work together. how we have different elements, different layers, different levels of everything. And my art's very complex. I have a lot of different styles, but my main original arts are very complex, and there's a lot of different layers. And as you look at them, they're telling stories. And I think that's like a reflection of my art progression too, because of all the research and all the things that I've looked up, influences I get. Just like you were saying, when I'm thinking about doing a piece, I'll go online, I'll find a bunch of things that, like images, other inspirations, other artists doing great things, get inspired by what I see, and then that's how I start with my process. References, yeah, exactly.
Don't be afraid to use references.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. I
A lot of people
totally agree
think
that.
that.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be afraid to use references because that is the way things are supposed to be. Have that as a base, and then from there, do disproportionate things, do surrealism. And I love to do surrealism. I love to do things that are dreamlike and different. Taking things that we're grounded in and expanding on that and making it kind of weird. And a dark edge to things too. I love that too. Not scary, but well, maybe a little scary. But yeah, it makes it more interesting because there's something cool about dark. As long as it's not like, well, maybe really dark. Might be cool.
Barrett figures he's a little scared.
I'm a little scared.
So dark, man.
So dark right now. But, yeah, and that's my progression basically. My mom is a biology teacher. That has influenced me quite a bit with the science part. And my dad was a publisher and an editor, layout artist. There's where the graphic design came from. So a lot of it's from my parents. And then Otronicon itself is also a great like melting pot of everything here. It's science related, it's art related, they coexist. Like everybody's saying, it's inspired. I see something that's a robot, and that actually, to me, that's all little pieces that come together just like an ecosystem would have. It's the same thing, they're all related. So, yeah, that's about it. Humphrey, what are your thoughts?
Me again. The hardest thing about being the last person on this panel is that from when I'm listening to Ken, I already know what I'm going to talk about, but by the time Warren finished saying his stuff, I already forget what I was saying. And then when I'm listening to Barrett, I'm trying to think about what I was thinking about. So I have that effect. So that's what happens when you have 2 nights of long days. But
Shouldn't have had all this.
That's an artist's mind, man. It just goes.
Why are you at Otronicon?
So basically, like human beings, you know, we all evolve. So as and when you evolve, you like, you know, everything has to progress. So basically, that's the same way I see art. Like with art, you know, I started off doing traditional, and you know, you have to learn the basics before you can start any, you know, to jump into like, you know, technology and stuff like that. You know, you have to learn all your fundamentals and everything, and all your tools. You know, like you can't just paint without not knowing how paint works. So
I have
you
no
know,
idea how this works.
well, you learn.
Well, you're learning.
But you know, of course you all have to, you know, study and like practice. But eventually, you can't be afraid. That's the problem with today's world. There's a lot of people who are afraid to take the next step and try different mediums. And with technology, that's the biggest, you know, thing right now with all the new like programs that come out. A lot of people are afraid to like take the next step and try to relearn how to do something that they haven't touched yet. So because they already learned how to do the traditional stuff, they're afraid to like take the next step, and they'll be cheating by doing, you know, like digital, which I think that's, you know, that's gonna hold you back because because I started off doing traditional and then I jumped into the digital, and when I jumped into digital, I saw this whole new world of technology, and it keeps growing every year, every minute. There's something new that keeps coming out, and it gets kind of scary because like as we get older, things get easier and there's more things that keep coming out, and other people learn, you know, younger people learn faster than, you know, the older. So it's like, you know, so with that, you know, it's pretty intimidating, but you know, but you gotta keep at it. If you love this, you gotta keep doing it. You
So
know,
you're saying to like embrace the technology. and
Embrace the
create
technology.
Use
you-
it to your advantage.
Yeah,
Use
you
it
have
to your advantage.
you have to, because if you don't, you know, you'll be left behind. And it's like today, like, you know, people are already starting to use like their iPads and their iPhones instead of computers now. And eventually it's gonna come to that point where we're not even gonna be using computers anymore. We're gonna be using just iPads or phones.
People are doing art with virtual reality now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, so don't be afraid of technology. Don't be stuck in the hole and just like, you know, of course you still have to learn your basics before you become a better artist. But to be a better artist, you know, you also have to evolve. So that's where, you know, technology comes in. And, you know, I've always been a fan of technology and gadgets and stuff like that. You know, maybe it's because I'm Asian, I don't know. But, but yeah, you know,
And the jeans.
it's in the genes, you know.
Oh my god.
But yeah, it's fun, you know. It's fun if you go out there and you see what you can do with it, you know. But you know, I think that's mainly it.
All right. Can I add one more thing? I think to expand on that, experimentation.
Yeah.
Always experiment with things, and don't just stick to one thing. Because a lot of artists that I've talked to, they're like, "Oh yeah, your styles are all over the place. They're across the board." And for me, I'm like,
That's great.
that's limiting to me, and it's not fun. And personally, that's not what excites me. And if art becomes a chore, becomes something I don't want to do, then it won't be my passion anymore. So for me, I say, screw 'em. Just do what you want to do, and do all the styles you can.
Yeah. Variety is important.
You can't see.
Oh, you can't? Oh. Take that back.
You've been
Yeah,
banned.
variety is very important.
You've been banned.
And I was just gonna say real quick, just keep practicing and never think that you're not good enough. Because for many years I didn't think I was good enough, and I would see my art friends doing drawings and things, and I was just like, I'll never be able to do anything with my art. And I entered graphic design, and same feeling. It was just kind of like, yeah, I'm okay at it. Yeah, I'll maybe get a job or something. And then one day you just kind of take a moment to appreciate what you're capable of and what you can do, and take yourself seriously, because you need to believe in yourself before anything else. It takes a bit of confidence and practice to do what we do, because it takes experimenting is this process of you're failing